Hey everybody, it's your boy Davis over at the CFG, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Whaddya Think Spoiler Cast. I am your host, like I said, Davis Green, and with me today I got an awesome geek with me. She loves anime. She is a cartoon buff, a very funny person. I'd like to welcome Stevie Ray to the show with me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm really glad you're able to just we actually have time to actually just kind of nerd out about this about the topic today with X-Men. So I'm really hyped on doing this.
You picked one of my favorites, so I'm very happy that you invited me to be on because as all of my friends know, I haven't shut up about it ever since it started airing. So it's actually the only reason I canceled all of my, I canceled my Disney Plus like years ago, and I repurchased Disney Plus specifically so that I can watch X-Men 97 and the original, of course.
You know what's funny? I just canceled my Disney Plus because I was like, there's no reason for me to have it anymore. That was the only reason why.
Yeah, see it season 2, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I really think.
Oh man, like because like I mean, I was thinking of it. It's like, okay, what are we gonna watch on Disney Plus? It's like, it's like I was thinking Doctor Who. It's like I don't know, I don't know. I can wait till Doctor Who, but I don't know.
I just feel like it's overall, I do feel that personally, Disney Plus and all of Marvel is feeling a superhero fatigue because they've really just pushed so much to the point where I think that people have kind of lost interest. And I like to see that they are taking something nostalgic and reinvigorating it, so that way it doesn't feel like part of the fatigue. It feels completely separate. It feels like a piece of your childhood, but better.
Totally agree with that, because like what's actually kind of weird though too, because it really feels like how X-Men 97. First, I was like, I couldn't wait till it came out, but then at the same time, I was kind of worried on like because of how the streak of Marvel movies have been for the past couple of years hasn't really been the greatest, and I was hoping that they weren't going to change a lot from it. And with some of the animations and the still shots prior to when the series came out did give me hope that they didn't really completely foobarred it, but it still kind of was like just please don't screw it up, please don't mess up with my childhood, please.
No, I really say that like I had some hesitations myself because they really scaled back the animation on a lot of our favorite features of the women, and I think that that overall had an impact of where we as a viewer probably thought this was going to be, because I personally, I felt like a lot of that stuff was a lot of the original, in the X-Men 92 was really a lot of people's sexual awakenings, of like Rogue or Scott or Wolverine, like a lot of like, you were like, I don't know if I want to sleep with them or be them,
I'm pretty sure
I'll keep watching.
One said that no one wanted to sleep with Wolverine. That would be, it's like,
no,
he's like a little hairy cat, like a little hairy like werewolf man for the most part.
A lot of people are into that.
Be honest, were you one of those people?
No, I was team Rogue, like through and through, for sure. That like I always thought that I mean, Rogue had a lot going on for sure, and I think that they really overemphasized the women's features, which gets a lot of criticism, and it's justified criticism, in these comic book universes. And at the same time, I feel like when it came back, we were all like, oh, what happened to that? Where's the badunkadunk, But then, watching the series, we see that like they really amped up the male features of every male, main male character, and I'm for it. I'm for it.
You're for it, definitely. Like the basketball game, the Gambit halter top, halter top that he had, and
well, we've got the Gambit halter top. We've got Magneto in a Speedo that's like on that board where he's just like strapped down. Come on, there's some like Dami stuff that's going on. There's like at one point where like Magneto has someone under his boot and like. It's sexual in nature. It just is. And it's like, I like that they know their audience well enough to be like, yeah, we're going to put in this like kind of sexy stuff that's also very memeable, because that was also a part of the like assets of the original X-Men, is that now as adults, we do a lot of memes and GIFs about it. And I feel like they kind of kept that going.
Yeah.
In a lot of the discussion groups I've seen. Everyone's talking about Magneto and a Speedo.
The Magneto Speedo. Hey, actually rhymes. But did you see the picture of the voice actor who played Gambit? I think his name was AJ Locasio, I believe his name. He had that same halter top. And he went to WonderCon.
Oh yeah, he's going to most conventions wearing that, and it's I have no complaints. I mean, he's just as attractive as Remy. So like, I will take it. I mean, honestly, I saw a picture of the whole cast at WonderCon, and I was just like, man, I would do it with any of these people. Like, they're just as attractive as their characters. The voice acting was like spot on. Like, they could have probably just animated like what they really look like, and I probably would have still been into it.
Even Cyclops, though. Even Cyclops.
Honestly, I gotta say, Scott Summers really shined in this series. I gotta say that overall, Cyclops is hands down my least favorite character in all of the series, because he's just an annoying like daddy's little boy type character, and he's obnoxiously good, and that's not really true to his character in the comics, I don't feel, because a lot of times he does kind of like teeter into the Magneto realm or defying Xavier, and I think that I think that the way that we see Scott Summers portrayed in this series is how I would love to see him portrayed, when even in the beginning when he just like jumps off of the X-Wing and then uses that blast to just like soften his blow. That I knew instantly the second I saw that this is a different X-Men that we're going to see, and the way that his character like follows throughout the whole series of like being mad at Xavier, which is something that we would have never seen before. And, talking back to the reporter that we saw, where he's like, humans would be dead if it wasn't for us. And like, really just like laying it out. It's just like, yeah, this isn't the kids cartoon we grew up with. This is an adult version of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, well, yeah, we'll definitely be getting into a lot more. It's like we're already starting getting into it, but I just wanted to give an introduction of what we're talking about, just in case if you don't know already. I mean, it's too obvious to tell already. But this episode of the spoiler of What Do You Think spoiler cast, we were talking about X-Men '97, the Disney plus not really a reboot, but continuance of the 1992 X-Men animated series that ran all the way back from 1992 to 1996. So for 5 years, and back in that time, it was amazing, and they decided it was on the cold shelf for a little bit over 30 years, almost 30 years. Yeah,
30 years, yeah.
Jesus. Okay, yeah, for 30 years. So 30 years after now, since Disney has the rights to Marvel, they're making some good animated moves. They chose one of the most loved series when we were growing up, and decided to make it a series on Disney Plus, and it was successful, because I think I haven't heard anything bad about this series, like overall in review wise, as well as they're saying that this is like the best cartoon series that came out this year. I think for the most part, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the standard of what I've been seeing, come with reviews. I will say that I think that there's a lot of the fandom, the original fandom, that is torn. I think that I would say a fair amount of the original fandom seems to have not caught on that any of this was ever meant to be political. And so now that it's like very political, and they're not.
It's been political though.
It's always been political.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to see that, like, it's very clearly always been like that. And we have people just being like, it's the woke left getting their hands on our favorite cartoons. And it's like, no, this is literally the way that it has always been. It's just finally we don't have a network to step in the way and say, like, you can't make gay stuff. You can't make woke, like, it was literally, I know we're going to get into the details of the characters, but I can keep going.
Oh, no, we definitely can. I'd definitely love to, because I kind of want to say something about it, because it's the funniest thing, because X-Men, the creation of X-Men was all about was politicism at its time for it in itself.
Yeah.
And like when it was created, but anyways. But anyways, guys, like as always, if you like the episodes or that we like to do, definitely support us by liking, following, or subscribing to their YouTube channel, the CFG channel, or just kind of give us a thumbs up on any podcast station out there. And if you also have an opinion yourself about X-Men 97, I want to hear about it as well, or we would like to hear about it. I'm pretty sure Stevie would like to hear about it too. Definitely,
I want to hear about it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just put it inside the comment inside on our YouTube or on any of the podcast services. We would love. I do read it all the time. I'd like to get everyone's opinions on this. But anyways, like I said, if you didn't watch the series, watch the series. But this is a spoiler cast for any of the fans that has finished it, or they're just wanting to see how the series was as a whole. So this is the official spoiler warning at this point. So there you go. You have been warned. I mean, if the title alone didn't tell you that this is a spoiler cast, then now this is the vocal warning that you will get spoiled about if you do listen to this. But thank you. But anyways, let's get into it. So there's no more barriers and stuff along the way. So we are going to be talking about X-Men 97 and how the whole series was as a whole. So Stevie, why don't you start us off with it first? Like, so overall, like your personal thought overall as a series, what did you think of the series?
I mean, I do think it's a phenomenal series. It might be, I definitely agree that it could be best cartoon of the year. It might even be best cartoon of the decade, depending on how, if they continue to run the way that they're running. And I think that they will. I think that everything that they're doing is brilliant and well thought out. I also like how where in sometimes in the instances in the like original Marvel animated series from the 90s, I felt like they were just reading one or two comic storylines and putting them together. But I feel like in this X-Men 97, we're seeing them clean up timelines, right? Like with the whole Madeline Pryor thing, and where, in the original comic series, he was just like, oh, Jean Grey's alive. I don't have a wife anymore. I don't have a kid anymore. Like really cleaning that stuff up and making, Scott Summers the father that, he should have been in the original series. And also bringing in the amount of Easter eggs from other storylines. When we see different character cameos, they're really building a whole universe. I think it's really great how they kind of use these when you see like big panel shots of a bunch of characters like in Genosha or when the Sentinels are attacking, and you see all of these other people, superheroes, etc., in the background. It really helps fill in the Marvel universe that is going on in the X-Men storyline. And I think that that's really cool, and not something that we have seen to the full scale other than like maybe the Avengers movies. But even then, it's like you only see a character if they're going to be a big player, right? But even in this, we see even little tiny cameos that don't even have lines yet. Hopefully we'll see more of them.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with you. I think what I loved about this one as well, it's like kind of what you're saying. But it's funny because like I don't know if you know this, but I've talked to the creators of the original '92 X-Men, Eric and
Hmm.
Julia Lewald and stuff, and and then how they told me like what they were initially thinking in the first season was that they didn't. I mean, they knew X-Men, they didn't really they didn't really understand it, but they wanted to push it because they liked the idea of it. But they didn't know the
Right.
storylines very well. So that, I mean, so like if you ever see the original '92 X-Men, then you kind of saw that they did mash up like a lot of story and then into weird segments, kind of like Days of Future Past was a lot different than
Yeah.
what was supposed to be. Bishop's the Bishop coming back from the future to this and everything, but it worked. It worked. And like, remember the first episode of when they decided to unalive Morph in the first episode of ever
Right.
for the series. But what I loved about this one in '97, they kind of did a B story. Like the A was the primary story that
Hmm.
overlined everything that was happening through the first episode to all the way to the episode 10. And then they had these other side stories like Jubilee in the video game with Mojo World, as well as
Yeah.
Storm trying to get her powers back and things like that. That was trickled down, that made sense, that kind of keep people like not fully engaged of the continuance of the story, but they did an incredible job on just like, Matt, especially Madeline Pryor, the introduction of Madeline Pryor early on and stuff like that. They did a great job on pacing in this in just 10 episodes. They just made you want more from it.
Absolutely. And I think that something that I think is beautiful about the storyline is that because it's a continuation, in the first, in the original X-Men animated series, we saw a lot of the big headline storylines, right? That we all know, like as X-Men fans, like the Apocalypse storyline, like the things that we're very familiar with and have been redone. Days of Futures Past, even in X-Men Evolution, they rehashed a lot of those same storylines, just from a different perspective. And I really like that because this is a continuation, we finally get to get into more niche storylines, more, like we're really painting with a lot more detail versus broader strokes, like I feel like every other X-Men series in the past has only been able to do.
I totally, yeah, definitely. I mean, now that now they got me on board at this point. Like I know, like there's no
Sure.
there's no anticipation, or there's no like worry and stuff. Especially Disney did the right thing too, because I don't. They also brought back the Eric and Julia Lewald, as well as the lead animator from the original one, Larry Houston, as like as consultants of the new series, and they were kind of keeping that pace to kind of make it match as if there was no 30-year break between the last episode of the
Right.
92 series to 97. So I mean, they were just freaking great. But like you were saying earlier about like kind of like I'm just gonna get the elephant in the room, because I really hate Cyclops. but
Oh, who
but
doesn't?
oh
But who
god,
doesn't? But
like
but how do you feel about him? How do you feel about him in this series, separate from your opinion overall
okay,
of Cyclops?
separate from my opinion about Cyclops, there's a lot of things that he does that's a lot better and more like competent than what he normally, like, that you would never that you would
Sure.
expect him to be. And then also at the same thing, you can also empathize with the situation that he was in too, because I'm like, you're literally in a Jerry Springer moment, because you don't know like
Yeah.
with certain parts of like because like initially so let me just get kind of let me just lay the picture out just for everyone here. So basically what happens in the first episode, you see Jean Grey pregnant. It's Cyclops' baby. Everyone's happy, and things are kind of going into play. But at the same time, we find out, like in the continuance, that Professor X is dead. at this point of the story. Professor X is dead, and it's just the original core X-Men group that's just there laying it out. So they're just doing their thing basically without the true leader of the X-Men, with Professor X gone, and then all of a sudden Magneto comes in saying that this is X-Men, this is Xavier's will to bring him in. First off, I gotta say, Professor Xavier is it's an enigma of in my sense of like I just don't even understand it. Like, does this dude love just putting people in the ringer? I mean, I don't know what this is.
That's something, actually, I know we're talking about Cyclops, but I want to take a whole tangent on Xavier because
go for it.
It's this. It's the same but reverse of so yes, I've never been a fan of Cyclops. I've always thought he was the weakest character in any of the series that we've seen. And I've always been a pretty big fan of Xavier. I've been a big fan and advocate of Professor X. I thought, Professor X good, Magneto bad, right?
Right.
And then we get into the series, and I love the complexity of who Scott Summers is as a character now. And I'm really on board with his storyline. And as far as Xavier, I'm like, this guy sucks. He has led so many people in this political theater of a representation of mutants. And I love the way that this storyline echoes Magneto is right. Magneto was right. Magneto was right. Because it really shows that, while Xavier had the best intentions, he was almost always wrong. That there's no real decision that he's made that when I look back now, I go, yeah, that was a good decision. And this series has actually made me unpack everything I thought about Professor Xavier and who I thought he was as a character.
Xavier, this series basically shows you was basically solidifying the fact that Magneto was right. I mean, they're all of it on this side. I mean, everything, because you remember the time when he was held captive to this little speech that the girl that double crossed him was saying, you know what, what's crazy about it, we weren't even surprised that this happened. They weren't even surprised that it happened, and yet at the same time you're expecting the mutants to be the one to be like, oh, okay, well, let's back down, we'll give humans another chance and stuff. I'm like, bro, you've given y'all have mutants have been the whipping post for so long in this for the whole deal. You decimated the one area, the one safest spot in the deal. Y'all went out of your way to just decimate it because of just natural human fear of it. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's how is Xavier going to totally turn this around to be okay, everyone is going to be in the kind of back into a kumbaya moment, and he didn't. Thank God. I really love the fact that he didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just and I love that there was a division in the X-Men about it too. There was there was a split of it. It's come on, enough is enough, bro. It's these people they took out hundreds of thousands of mutants that were minding their own business out of the way with this ridiculous looking roach sentinel looking thing. So yeah.
I in particularly love that scene because, both Jean and Storm are on board Team X-Men, Team Xavier. And when Rogue, goes to join Magneto in that scene, and Storm says, don't turn your back on family. And she goes, you weren't there. You were gone. And none of the, and she's saying that to Storm, but none of them were there. It was her and Magneto were the only survivors of that whole incident. And it's interesting to me that that these characters would be come on, we're supposed to do it the old school way, and you have to see it you have to just join us blindly, even against your opinions. And she's like, you weren't there. I saw all of the people I love murdered at the same time. That's not going to happen. I'm going to do something about it. And the amount of mic drop moments that Magneto had the entire series, in particularly starting out with when he's talking about the woman who double crossed him. Do not make me let you down. Oh my God. Yes. Like,
it's so crazy.
That is like that's the scariest threat I've ever heard. Like, I'm going to work with you until you don't work with me again. And then I'm going to destroy everything. And what a fulfilled promise he made.
He really did. He's a man of his word, definitely. But then so kind of continuing on. Sorry to kind of get into that though. We digress quite easily. It's hard to control this. So basically, so Magneto now becomes the leader of the X-Men. And Cyclops does not trust Magneto for obvious reasons. But they were preparing. Jean and him were preparing to actually leave the school to have a life to raise the baby that they were about to have. Mm-hmm. And then there was a little bit of political disturbance because now now the government was worried that Magneto, who is technically a not rebel but I guess technically.
I mean, I think he's considered a terrorist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is considered a terrorist. Yeah.
Yeah. So a terrorist is now the leader of the X-Men. The X-Men that they were like wanting to like put him in to trial him and stuff like that to see if he really did turn the other leaf and stuff. And then even throughout that whole deal, you have the other hate groups that actually Sabretooth, ironically enough, is Sabretooth's dad, that created that group. Is now like another terrorist group who wants to take out mutants, comes in and tries to disrupt this whole trial and stuff. So they shoot out. There's a big brawl when they were going into this trial about Magneto. Comes to find out that's where they had the special bullet where it suppresses a mutant's power, which was supposed to be for Magneto, but Storm blocks the way. So now Storm loses her powers. So it's a lot of crazy stuff is happening at the same time. And then during all of this, Jean Grey is having birth to their baby with Cyclops. And what's even crazier about that too? Yeah, what you can go.
Sorry, I really like that scene in particular because, when Jean's talking to Wolverine and she's like, he's coming, and Wolverine's like, Apocalypse? Like, he's like so ready to fight Apocalypse, and she's like, no, the baby, and then like his jacket and his keys just fly in his face, and I just think that like that's the everyday X-Men I also want to see,
Yeah, exactly. They're already ready. They're ready for that fight. Especially Apocalypse.
Right, but not a baby. Yeah.
What's Wolverine gonna do to Apocalypse? He can't do jack with him. Anyway, yeah, but it was
he can't do jack, but he also just the fact that like he didn't even fathom that like he would be the one who had to deal with the delivery of a baby.
And then even at that with the trouble, because remember the doctor didn't want to give birth to it. Didn't want to help with the birth to it because he didn't besides his own his bias or his racism for it, but it was also the fact that he didn't know what to expect coming from a mutant of the mutant itself. So then they did the smart thing with Rogue using her powers to steal the from it.
I think that that's a brilliant plot point that we don't like that wasn't really emphasized enough, and the fact that what is another way that we see that Scott Summers isn't messing around anymore. He's not playing things by the book. And so he's like, no, I need to get this this is my baby. It needs to be delivered. Rogue, touch the man, deliver this baby. And it's like, that's the leadership I want to see.
He was in control. You know? Dude, when Cyclops is a villain, like in the books, then that's not usually respected. But when he's the leader, that's when it's usually I don't know. You're not really on my list. Really, I really hate you when you're the leader, right, on the good guys. But yeah. So anyway, so the baby's born, and it's Nathan Summers, and then you come to find out after all of that's all said and done, that's not really Jean Grey. Another Jean Grey comes. It's Jean Grey's clone, that was made by Mr. Sinister. So now, and then Mr. Sinister is the main, is one of the main antagonists of the whole story. But you come to find out that
of both series.
Yeah. Was he in both series? I thought,
yeah.
Really? Oh, okay. I don't remember.
Sinister came around a lot in the original series. Yeah, they explain the origin of Sinister. Yeah, he's a big role, and it always seems like he's gone just enough, like just long enough in every season to forget about him, and then he comes back, and it's like, well, who could be controlling all of this? And then Sinister comes out from the shadows, and you're like, oh yeah,
that makes sense then, because like I was like, I mean, I knew Sinister was in the original one, but like the only time I remember was like when after Jean and Scott get married and stuff, they get kidnapped, and then it was in Sinister's Island or whatever. But I don't remember that other stuff. But wow, well, that makes sense. But anyway, so what ends up happening is that you find out that Sinister made a perfect 100% copy of Jean Grey. And she didn't, and then the clone didn't even know that she was a clone. So they find out, Beast verifies that she was the clone that gave birth to Scott's kid. But she was also technically a sleeper agent to Sinister. Sinister was able to just reactivate her a little bit to activate her to try to make her to get control back to her. But then she also becomes that also transforms her to become Madeline Pryor. Technically the Goblin Queen is also known that she's also known as.
Yes. I also just kind of wanted to emphasize a couple of things that we saw to kind of give us hints that this was Madeline Pryor, because she had psychic visions in episodes 1 and 5 that were, at the time we didn't know until the very end, but very obviously connected to the Phoenix Force. Those were the Phoenix Force sending her, some type of visions about what this was going to happen. And this is kind of the first time that we're seeing Madeline Pryor in any of these series, but B, seeing that she is also just as connected to the Phoenix Force as Jean Grey is, because when Sinister in the comic books created her as the clone, it was the Phoenix Force that woke her up out of the sleep pod that she was in, and kind of awakened her.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's, I don't know if they'll ever kind of tell that kind of backstory to it, but it's something that I think is really important to knowing a little bit more about her character and how she's connected to the Phoenix Force.
Yeah, because the cartoon really didn't do that, because it just kind of felt like it was dumped on you, because they didn't really necessarily they didn't really reintroduce you to the Phoenix Force until really to episode 10, when you said some of the lingering power of the Phoenix Force was still within Jean Grey, and that was how she was able to escape. But he literally came to the doorstep, and then it just came in, and it was like, oh, okay, another Jean Grey. It could be an imposter and stuff. That's how it kind of comes.
Right.
Across. But what were we gonna say?
Right, and it's one of those. It's one of those things that if you don't know the details from the comics, that it's really hard to just know who some of these characters are. I do think that 97 does do a pretty exceptional job of giving us the quick and dirty about that stuff. But I also got to say that as much as I really do the original Phoenix Force series, I really struggle with how much writers use the Phoenix, even though they're not even though Jean Grey's not connected to the Phoenix anymore, that it's just anytime the writers back themselves into a corner, then the Phoenix comes, exudes power, everything's done. And it's we gotta, in my opinion, which I'm speaking to writers of the past, so really it doesn't matter, but it's I just feel like it's such a cop out. And so I have a lot, I feel very much about the Phoenix the way you probably feel about Cyclops.
Well, technically, no, you have a justifiable reason for it, because it was funny, because I kind of felt somewhat the same way, because there was out of the whole 10 episodes, there was references that it was about when she was Phoenix, and secondly, it was a long time ago when all this stuff. So we don't, and then thirdly, we don't know when they were swapped out. When Madeline Pryor and Jean Grey was swapped out. We know it had to have been post Phoenix, but at the same time, but it was still a long time distance to that. And then all of a sudden in episode 10, she has lingering powers of the Phoenix that allowed her to get to not drown to death from Cable's powers and stuff. That I kind of feel that they used like exactly what you said. I think that they kind of used it as like a Mary Sue kind of situation where they were like they're making, which is really weird because Jean Grey can hold her own if you allow her to. Is when it comes into that kind of level, but I totally understand that, and it's funny because like one of my worst storylines is Phoenix. I know I'm never a fan of Phoenix because of that.
Really?
Well, because of that sole reason. Because you're right. Every single writer, when they get into a situation where like they write themselves into something, the Phoenix is the excuses that writes them out of it, and it drives me insane. That's every time, and that's why I wasn't a fan of Jean Grey for a long time. Still am kind of not.
Yeah,
they made it a little bit better. And then I think the best way that they wrote Phoenix, in my opinion, was when they were doing Avengers versus the X-Men, when they made it the Phoenix Force 5, when they split the powers with Cyclops, what's her name, White Queen, Colossus, Magic, and someone else. It's like that's when it made more sense because it was like okay, and then that was it. They really didn't kind of went back into the well towards it, but no, they went
they were harnessing it. They were making it an actual plot point. They weren't just being like, oh no, everything is bad. There is no way we're going to win. Phoenix swoops in. Okay. And then Jean Grey always has to go, yeah, the Phoenix and I are not attached anymore, but she just came, Phoenix just came to save us this one time. And the next time.
I really wish that one of the X-Men, like Nightcrawler or something, just calls her out. I was like, that's some bullshit. Just like out of the
that would be so wonderful. That would be so wonderful. I would really like that too, actually. I think that would be...
Yeah, it's like, so Phoenix was just chilling this whole time, couldn't help us out anytime earlier when we were getting our asses handed to us with the 150,000 Sentinels? No, okay, no. But so overall, like, the whole setup in the first 3 episodes was just so freaking amazing. I love like that kind of in the situation that Cyclops is now in. It's like now he has 2 lovers, and they got to a point where their minds and their memories are so scrambled up they don't know which memories are their own personal memories of each of it. And I'm just like, wow, dude, that's great. The only thing you know for certain is that Nathan Summers is Madeline Pryor's kid. It's not Jean Grey. It wasn't Jean Grey. Right. So yeah, that's it.
Only thing we know for certain. I would also say that I really like the way that these creators lured us into an almost false sense of like security in the first 4 episodes, where they felt very episodic. Like the originals would have, 1 or 2 parters, that would carry on. But overall, like you said, there was the A plot and then the B plot. And I felt like a lot of the first 3 and 4 episodes were the B plot. And almost in the way that I was like, this is very nostalgic of like Saturday morning cartoons. This is exactly what, I was thinking that this would be like, that like we get this like awesome badass fight scene with the X-Men theme overplaying at the end of each episode, and like and we're good to go and I can sleep at night. And then we get to episode 5 and it's like, no, it is not episodic, and it's going to keep you up at night.
Oh my god, it's like, well, especially the one thing I really kind of like. Do you really? Okay, first off, it was, like I think one of the biggest episodes was episode 4, where obviously like what was the attack on Genosha, and the people that died in Genosha. That was like, this is freaking crazy. Especially with like how everything was being set up, that they were trying to get into to be realized as a true nation, a true nation and stuff. And then you just see like the gala where these people are all looking all fine as hell and stuff like that, but then all of a sudden the mayhem just occurs. Like a lot of people are dying and people are disappearing. You see the big hit was the death of Gambit, and how he goes out and stuff, and then the last thing you hear in the episode is I can't feel you from Rogue and stuff.
That part's episode 5. That is episode 5. So episode 4 is the intro to Genosha. Yeah, they're two. It's like a 2-part.
Was that 2 parts?
And so
I thought that was all in one episode.
Okay, look it up. Look it up for me. But episode 5 is Remember It, which is the big death sequence.
Okay. Oh, you're right. Okay, wait, because you're right, because it was 2. Yeah, because you're right. Episode 4 was the video game thing with Jubilee and
right.
Okay, yeah.
Right. It's okay.
5.
I think you're just one off. It's fine. It's not because I certainly haven't watched episode 5 4 or 5 times at this point. I wouldn't say that about myself. I wouldn't give any of you that. I wouldn't give anyone listening that information about me whatsoever. And how many times I watched that episode is between me and God. Okay, so. Yeah, I think I think episode 5 was monumental in a lot of ways, but also just mind blowing for me, because that's really when it said, like, we are not the show that you watched as a kid. You know, we are, like, you hear human screams the entire episode, right? And it really invokes a lot of emotion, and especially, you know, Beau DeMayo did discuss about a big thing that he wanted to bring up is that, you know, a lot of the X-Men that we know was created prior to 9/11, and that, you know, what we see as racism and human rights significantly changed after that monumental event in American history. And so I think that this is a really good way to, like, kind of bring that to the forefront of all of our memories of you know, how big of a deal this is in the X-Men universe, and how important it is to all of their character arcs, right?
No, yeah. I mean, well, that is definitely for the longest of time, we've, like, X-Men has always, like, not X-Men, but mutants in the X-Men universe have always been treated like garbage. Like, even during X-Men 92, we just saw the stuff, like, you know, I mean, essentially enslavement camps and stuff in the original, and stuff like that. And,
the original Genosha. Yeah.
And Genosha and stuff. And then also, like, other small things. You saw the hate groups that are doing all the crazy thing, the crazy attacks.
Friends of Humanity.
Yeah, the Friends of Humanity, and as well as, you know, like, the sewer dwellers, like, you know, with Leech, and then the groups like that, because they did their mutations.
The Morlocks, yeah.
Yeah.
And they finally, right. Yeah. I know. Let me just provide all the terms for everything you're feeling, because it's a huge deal. And obvious, like, you know, once you know it, it's like such obvious foreshadowing of this, like, safety that, like, finally mutants have this place to be free and themselves. And, like, yes, there are still, like, huge levels of poverty because they have to import everything, and, you know, like that, and that there's still class issues, but at the same time, it's almost like, at that point, it's political. It's not human rights, right? And not taking that aspect out of it makes it for a lot of people that are easier to live with each other. At the beginning, when we first see Genosha, there's a giant statue of both Magneto and Xavier, who at this point everyone knows has 2 extremely different views on how mutants should live life. But this is showing that they are that you can side with either of those people and be free to live here and be free to, you know, interact with those other people. And towards the end, when we see Xavier's statue fall and crush and kill a bunch of the mutants, that's such a metaphor for, you know, the way that Charles has really tried to do his best with things, but have always seemingly let down mutants for the sake of, you know, non-mutant humanity.
it's kind of weird because like Xavier's thought pattern of trying to coexist. I'm not saying that it may never that it may never happen, but it's just like the way that like it has been implemented for the longest of time. It's just like it's just exhausting. I mean, it's like overall, and especially when the fall of Magneto's Genosha that happened in the series, like is a key point, because I mean it is a key point to a point that it made him come not marry what's her name, the princess of the empire that he was about to get into, like to come back home and stuff later on, and then saying like, oh, I need,
which also can we
mistake. Yeah, and he was about to put
can we also see that right. But like, can we see the will that Charles wrote out? Like, I would really like to know, like it's just like, did he just like telepathically communicate that to Magneto at some point, or like how do we, you know? And I do think that like it honestly was a good choice to have Magneto come and be the leader of the X-Men for a little while.
He had a chance.
But I think
he had the good college chance. He was trying, because he was told
he really gave it his all. He really gave it his all.
Testament of Charles Xavier. He was trying to honor it because he was trying to go into the footsteps of what Charles was trying to do initially, and that's what he was trying to do. And then the buttons that like, and then at the same time though too, when he was like when he was setting up. When he set up Genosha to get to that, to be that area, the safe zone and stuff, and talking to the UN, and he was making moves to do what Xavier was willing him to do without doing violence into it, and it looked like he was making some segue, but apparently that wasn't enough. When all that was crashing down, he was like, you know what? Screw it! I'm doing it the way I was I knew. And he has a justifiable reason. He's a survivor of the Holocaust, and this is happening to him at the same time, like decades later after all of this. It's like, come on.
I think that we don't talk enough about how Magneto, like everything he's doing is a trauma response because of what he experienced in the Holocaust. And I feel like even Charles, who's supposed to be his like life partner essentially, doesn't even really fully validate that. And I know that we're like brushing off real early stuff, but like in one of the first ever episodes, if not the first episode of the original X-Men series, Magneto's unstoppable. So Charles makes him relive the Holocaust in his mind, which is like the meanest thing you can possibly do. And like, that's just gotta be like, in all of the fighting, it's like, you should have just killed him instead of made him relive the Holocaust. Like, that's probably the most,
the helmet.
Yeah, that is why he wears the helmet. And I think that like there's not enough emphasis on like the fact that like Magneto is actually being very, very patient with everyone. When he literally, he could probably end it all for most people in the snap of a finger. And it's like, that's pretty powerful stuff that he is just always having his thumb on. And even in the end, I know we're probably going to get to it, but like, the interaction between Wolverine and Magneto at the end, where everyone's attacking him and it's like, Magneto is clearly could end you at any second. Like, this is child's play to him. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, why are we having this like sparring match while the world is ending?
Yeah, totally agree. And especially like the gloves went off and he's like, you tried to kill me, and then he just pulls out the adamantium out of his body like
so
that.
Insane.
I was actually surprised they did that, because like a long time this was part of a comic book series that happened in the X-Men comics.
Yep.
And I was like, wow,
one of the craziest
one
of the craziest still images that I think has ever been drawn in X-Men history, I think, in that comic series.
Was the one that had the 3D hollow effect on the front of the and then you just see him this crazy agony, and you see the metal coming out of his body. I'm just like, why would you freeze frame it at that point and then do it like, oh, it's a holofoil? It's like, oh, cool. Let's see how this
cool.
Like different angle and stuff. I'm like, Jesus,
right?
Okay, right. Yeah. So I mean, you're right. The whole deal of it. But you know what's actually kind of what really kind of got to me, especially when I was watching this, and when episode 5 happened, because episode 5, oh shit, dude, episode 5 was insane. Then you hit episode 6, and you're like, okay, we gotta see what's gonna happen on episode 6. Then it's the B story. It's the B side story of like,
right. We're back to the B story. Right.
Oh,
right. And I'm like, no, can we go back, please?
What happened?
And I just also want to emphasize too the way that like the false sense of security that they like. I believe that the creators did us dirty in a very intentional way of bringing Nightcrawler in, because he's like the most happy-go-lucky, lovable character ever, and to like that made us all feel safe in Genosha. That made you feel safe in Genosha. Mm-hmm. That made me feel safe in Genosha. You know,
the mood of Genosha was great at the initial start of the show, of the episode. It's like, oh, it's all good,
right,
and everything.
That this was going to be a good feeling, yeah. And then after that episode ended, when DeMeo tweeted, he's like, "Oh, that episode 5 is just the warm up. Episode 8 through 10 are where things get like really serious." And then that was really when I was like, "Oh, so 6 and 7 are going to be the B plot." And it's like, all right, fine. But I also my personal opinion about it is that episode 5 is the best episode in the entire series. There's nothing like that's truly like a work of art that brought out a lot of feelings, I think, in a lot of people in a way that provoked all this discussion that we're having, right? And then to just like go back to Storm series was like a whiplash of events, and then I just also have to say, like, in the Storm series, which I did enjoy, and the fact that they brought back, like her fear of claustrophobia, that I felt like wasn't really discussed much in any of the other series. When she finally like gets this inner strength and then does this like amazing feat of all of her powers that my friend just handed me this, actually, which is exactly what we're talking about right now. I'll put it out to the camera. Yeah. What a great, and it is a great storyline. But the way that she's like flying around and testing all her powers and like, and then like Forge is still dying though. like she's really like good for her for having a moment.
Forge is like, you know what?
But
I can sure use that flower right about now.
Right. But like she's too busy like doing cartwheels in the air,
flying with horses and
she's right. And I also find that interesting because, she's like, I'm not an X-Men anymore. I'm leaving. And like in her mind, like she is done with the X-Men. And then her powers come back and then she rejoins the team and then she yells at Rogue for turning her back on the X-Men. Like
the irony of it, I know.
You literally left. Like you not only left, but you were done. You were absolutely done because the X-Men, you could have stayed with them, maybe as a liability, but like, you didn't have to leave.
But then
you turn your back on family. Like you were just like, don't have powers anymore. Not my family,
I'm sorry, but come on, dude. Like, let's just, if anyone knows that the kind of stuff and shenanigans and hullabaloo that the X-Men go through, like, year round, she like, what good would she be like inside that? Even let's say theoretically, like her powers were gone the rest of the season. The Sentinel, the human Sentinel sleeper cells would have probably destroyed her if that was the case, because the mansion went again. So to be fair, in that situation, I think she just needed to get away. She needed to get away to to unload off of it. She was already ready to just say goodbye to everything and just be a roamer for the rest of her life, and stuff. But at the same time, she shouldn't be raising the finger to Rogue, especially all the shit that Rogue has seen throughout this whole process of everything that's happened, especially with Genosha, and then let alone the blind rage that she was having to try to find out who was the person that was behind it, that killed Gambit and stuff. Yeah, she should have not even opened her mouth at that point either. But the one thing I think the one thing that I think I like about also too is the one I think that we kind of least talked about was also the Sunspot, because like his story was kind of cool too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he's a piece of. I think he's also kind of dweebish in a way too. But in a way, it's because he doesn't accept the fact of his mutant abilities, because he's been sheltered in that level of like it's shameful to be a mutant. His parents were making him feel ashamed of even showing powers, and he was really cared about what people thought about that. So I don't think he's like to that level of like how Jubilee is fairly irrelevant, but like I do like to see. I am liking the growth of his character, of how he's becoming and making the decisions he's making.
I do really like the growth of him, and I get that we have to kind of have that narrative that builds to that. I do think that him and Jubilee, like the whole point is that they're foils of each other, right? And Jubilee was like, in the original series, I mean, she was already an X-Men, but she was the youngest and newest X-Men on the team. And they always were telling her like, this isn't safe enough. You can't be doing this. You can't be involved with this. You could get hurt. Like that isn't the job of an X-Men. And now she like finally has someone that she can impart a lot of that wisdom to and be a mentor to someone else. Which we do see like Jubilee, always trying to like look out for other people, and is something I really do like about her character. And yeah, the back and forth that we get with Sunspot is I think intentionally difficult to digest, because it's just like, we all know where we're going to end up with this character. We know that, and he ends up being like one of the strongest characters, newer characters that we get in some of these storylines. And we even see at the end when he's like really fighting Bastion, and like you can see from Earth him literally being a solar flare, which I just think is like the most badass thing, Right. And so I am really excited to see where they take his character.
And then how he also chose Magneto too. So like over all of that. So I mean
which is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was going to say, which is just also, very, it makes sense of his, like he was hiding it this whole time, which made it easier to be at the Xavier Institute, and his family was cool with it. And like, just, it's so queer coded too, the way that, his parent, like his mom was like, oh, I always knew that you were one of those, and I love you and I accept you, but our friends, our family, our voters, our, people who give us money, they can't ever know this fact about you. You have to hide this forever. Like that is the most queer-coded conversation that every child before probably 2008 ever had with their parents,
But then to go to kind of feel, it kind of has the same kind of energy as like I have a black friend kind of energy though too.
Right.
That kind of
right.
You're totally right. And I mean, and that's why I kind of respect like where he's coming from. Like he's not supposed to be about gung ho, about like because I mean being an X-Men is a lot, I would say, let alone being a teenager towards this. And then if he's in the closet of like being a mutant, let alone them trying to force him to kind of bring not necessarily force him, but but trying to make him feel more comfortable to realizing who he is. While all this is happening at the same time, I give him the clear like initially he was kind of like I wasn't feeling him, but you're like at the end of the series or the season, he is growing, and he's becoming his own person, that kind of thing. So I definitely can't wait to see what his go to.
Yeah, I think that that's how we probably all felt about, Jubilee in the original series too, that she was more of a liability and an annoying plot point versus like a real badass character. And I think that it isn't even until that she is in that fourth episode, where she is in that video game and she meets the other version of her that got stuck in that video game, which is voiced by her original voice actor, which I think is a phenomenal way. It almost like brings tears to my eyes to like pass the torch in that type of way. And we see in the last episode that the Jubilee that we know in this series took notes when she was watching that other Jubilee fight. And we see her use her powers in a way that we have not seen before in any of the animated series. We do see that she eventually becomes pretty powerful in the comic book series, but they also like really lose the plot with Jubilee overall in the comic book series. I think at some point they like change her race like 3 or 4 different times. They turned her into a vampire at one point. Yeah. They didn't know what to do with her. And I feel so bad because like I personally think that she is a very lovable character that we should give more attention to. And I'm glad that we're getting to see that in this new X-Men 97 series.
I agree 100% of that because I think that the always time I've always said with Jubilee is that she's a dazzler too. I mean, she's the same.
I personally think she's a Dazzler 1. maybe Dazzler is Jubilee 2. Okay.
I mean, like because like you're right because like the writing. I mean, Jubilee has always been kind of like the side character or the distant character of something of some sort. Like in House of M, she lost her powers. Then the way that she got her powers back, she didn't get her initial powers back. She became a vampire. I never read that story because I was like, "What the hell was that?" But
you don't need to. Like honestly, you don't need to. They tried to walk it back too, so
yeah, they did. They did when they tried to bring it all back. I think they tried to with the after Avengers versus X-Men because I think that's how it worked with when the Phoenix Force fought because they were trying to use that power. Then they used Hope Summers to bring everyone back, I believe.
You're right.
Yeah, so like the whole thing is just like it's a mess in the comic book world, and I mean, but like if you're looking at the X-Men 92, the 97 series with Jubilee, she's always been a liability. I mean, I'm not saying she's a bad liability though. It's just like because in the first series they've it's not like she was fighting those big threats like Apocalypse or freaking or Magneto and stuff like that. Like during that time, it was always a B-side story of her like look at the whimsical adventure of Jubilee or was she getting into this time kind of situation. And it feels the same exact way now. I mean, the only difference is that now she's on Asteroid M, but she's not fighting the main fight story. She's fighting Sunspot. So it's kind of like, yeah. So I mean, Jubilee is there. She is what she is.
She's there.
She's there, essentially. Like kind of, although surprisingly enough, I'm also the same thing. Like I mean, I think they kind of underused Wolverine a lot too in this one as well.
Actually, I really like. If you're asking me, which you are, that's why you invited me on this podcast. Yes. But if you're asking me, I actually think it's a really good thing that they didn't create a lot of storylines for Wolverine. DeMeo did talk about. He said that this is not going to be the Wolverine show, and I think that it's something that like is not brought up enough is that every X-Men plot point is the Wolverine show, a lot of the original X-Men series was just about Wolverine. At least, at least a third of each season was like Wolverine story arc where we didn't really see, that much character development in a lot of the other characters that we cared about. Then we had the Wolverine animated series that we got. And then we had 2 Wolverine movies, and even the original X-Men movie was mostly about Wolverine. And so it's like I think we have 3 Wolverine movies, sorry.
4 technically.
And so fourth on the way. That one I think is actually going to be what I'm for. But I when we talk about like superhero fatigue, I have Wolverine fatigue, and like I know I started this year like this, this podcast saying like, I mean, a lot of people are into that, and a lot of people are into that because that's all people want to talk about when it comes to X-Men is Wolverine. You're in a Wolverine, like I see Wolverine is all I can see on your shirt right now, you know? Like he's the most notable. Yeah, I know. Yeah. But it's like he's the most notable character, which is fine. But it's like that's not my favorite character, and I think that a lot of people are really. When I say a lot of people, I mean me, and so I hope that means a lot of people.
No, I totally agree. No, I totally agree with you there because like the biggest issue with the Wolverine, I think with the X-Men 92, with the original X-Men series, was that he was never surprised that when he was on whoever he was fighting, he knew who those people were already. Like right. Initially, like when they went to Mojo World, he knew Shatterstar. I'm like, you know, in the situation that y'all are in, like in right. the deal, you kind of have to freak out of some sort of level. Like most of the times when they were always in this deal, he was front heavy and he was ready to go. He was ready to rock. Even in this right. one, like you were saying that he was like, he's coming. And he's like Apocalypse. I'm like, bitch, you think you're gonna beat Apocalypse by yourself? Okay. No,
with you and a pregnant woman.
Yeah, like. You and a pregnant woman. Yeah, okay, sure. I would love to see that. But what I did love about what they did with Wolverine is like he was just enough to be there. I mean, to still make his presence there, but that as well as also showing that level of friendship that he had with Morph, because I love Morph in this one. Morph was like,
me too.
Yeah, like they made more, and I didn't even know with Morph because I thought Morph was just he can just morph into the forms of these people, like you know, kind of like what Mystique can. But like I guess his power is more than that because like you remember he was mimicking powers of like, you know, bigger people.
He's
like,
mimicking powers
and stuff like that, but like projectiles
and the Hulk, and then also Mr. Fantastic when he was like stretching and like there's I also kind of think that like when they created Morph like in the X-Men universe, they were like, what do we do about Mystique? Like that's just kind of a lame power now if like he gets both looks and powers. And I said Morph is non-binary, and I really like that they lean into that so much because that's the whole point is that Morph is this androgynous character who finds more acceptance living and acting like other people. And so Morph has not created an identity for themselves. And I think that that's something that I think that we will explore more in upcoming seasons. And the way that they do, like, because there's obviously fan fiction about Morph and Wolverine from the first episode that they had together in the original series. And so to really lean into that and, you know, and DeMeo confirmed that like when Morph at the end changed into Jean Grey and said that I love you to Wolverine, Morph was talking about their feelings, their real feelings for Wolverine. And I'm like, I am here for it. I am here for how messy this whole like Madeline, Scott, Jean, Wolverine, Morph. Let's keep adding, you know? Like,
we just, all like, I swear, like this Jerry Springer moment, like I swear to God, that's what
left and right. Left and right. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting, you know, because we haven't even gotten into all of Magneto's children yet, you know?
Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Polaris.
Yeah, exactly. And they're, you know, they were clearly on the boat in his subconscious with Rogue. We just like only saw their outlines, right? But I really feel like we're going to see a lot more from those characters, those three. And I think that there's going to be maybe like a team up between, you know, Magneto's kids and Mystique's kids, you know, like that would be, I think that would be really cool if we saw really like cool, that
merger.
Anyway,
you know what?
That would be. I think it'd be a cool merger.
That would, well, man, if they allow them to use Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch is one thing, but like but the Polaris, I think they could definitely do something with. Polaris makes more sense to me, if anything, to kind of go in the mix of it in it. But,
I think so.
Yeah, but they don't even acknowledge Scarlet Witch or Quicksilver to be mutants anymore, which really kind of saddens me, you know?
Yeah.
So like, but what I do hope is to see more Avengers going into this world, because because for the longest of time, and I kind of love that they did this, and I don't think that this is also kind of glossed over a lot, that the Captain America's thing with the mutants and stuff isn't the best per se, because like he doesn't really do a lot for like the X-Men, and the X-Men kind of don't like them like him himself, because the way they always looked at Captain America was that he's just a government official, kind of pressing down on them as well. And I love that
it's a show with powers.
Yeah, and I love that when Rogue was kind of going on her own, trying to find the people and stuff, and then Captain America tried to stop her or whatever. It's like that confrontation. I love that confrontation so much, because I was like, oh man.
She's like, oh, you won't need this then.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, go find it.
I really wanted it. Can you?
Oh man, it's so good.
And that's one thing that I do really enjoy about this X-Men series and that I felt like I wanted more of in the original, is just how much of an unstoppable force that Rogue is. And I felt like we were like, yeah, she's strong, but like, that was really it. Like, she literally has like every single power, and like we're just like, she's just background action. And so we really got to see like the forefront of her powers in this series, which I am absolutely in love with,
Yes, definitely. And then the only thing I don't love is the fact that she dressed up in that. I always hated that outfit, the green and the white with the hoodie, the hoodie.
The villain outfit.
That wasn't even really the villain outfit. Yeah. That's how she looks now. I mean, that's like she's.
Yeah. But it just kind of it's stuck.
It looks like a Snow Brothers, like she's getting ready to go into the north. Like, it just looks stupid to me. Like,
I get it. Yeah. I get it. And I think I do think that her original outfit is her best outfit for sure. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that, but they had to change it eventually. And sure, I'm team go back to the original outfit, but I do like that they
go back to the big TNA Rogue back in '92 though too.
I'm fine with that. Who wouldn't want Rogue TNA? Come on. I think that every straight woman is straight unless they're talking about Rogue, or maybe Chico. But I think I don't know. I respect the new outfit for sure, but I do think that her X-Men 97 outfit, X-Men 92 outfit is the best outfit that she has.
Everyone, hands down. I would totally agree though too. Although I will say I love the upgrade with Storm. Because although it's weird because that's not really an upgrade. That is her first outfit that she was in the comic books that they retrograded to her in the black. So I'm just like, I like that, but I like that outfit more than now. Back in the day, I would have said the silver outfit, but she looks like she's in aluminum foil. No,
I'm not a fan of that.
This one I think I like more. Although I would have liked the Mohawk Storm with the leather pants and the jean jacket.
Oh,
and stuff.
Course.
I would have loved that.
Of course. Who doesn't want? And I was honestly, I was, I understood, but like I wanted to keep the Storm Mohawk. Like the fact that her hair grew back made me a little sad. I got to be honest with you. I was really thinking that we would get because her Mohawk is my favorite detail in any of the series for Storm specifically.
Yes, most definitely. So, oh man, but like, but here's a question that I'm kind of wanting to know. In your anticipation of it now, since do you think the deaths that have happened in this episode is still going to linger on, or are they going to somehow come? Are they going to come back? Because like Gambit, Madeline Pryor, and the folks that did that they did. I think that there's going to be a way that they're going to fix all of that.
I know Gambit's coming back. In the end credits, or the end credit scene that we get, we know that Gambit is going to come back as a horseman. And I personally have the theory that in Marvel, nobody's ever officially dead. Marvel is the whole reason why we have the girl in the freezer theory entirely, which is, no one's dead. They're just in a freezer until it's a good plot point to bring back. Mm-hmm. I do think, there might be some people chilling with Kane, in time somewhere. Because we don't know where like Storm and Morph are, right? We know where a lot of the other characters are, but I'm kind of interested to see where that's going to lead. I'm certainly, the end credits. There's a lot going on there, and it's really leading up to the second story, which I do think is going to be an Age of Apocalypse series.
Oh my god! If it's Age of Apocalypse, that's going to be crazy. I would love to see their rendition of Age of Apocalypse, because there's just too much insane stuff that happens with that in that one. But then again, though, too, how would that work?
That's why I think it's the best series to do.
That's futuristic, though. That wasn't in the past, because where they're at right now, they're in the past, right? Like before he becomes Apocalypse.
But we don't know where we are in the timeline, because we do go. We see Rogue, Wolverine, Xavier. I forget who else, but they're in Egypt, and they meet. God. What's his name? The guy who becomes Apocalypse. I know I'm going to be roasted. So I know I'm going to be. Yeah, I don't want to butcher his name, but I'm sure I'll be roasted in the comments for it, and that's fine. Roast me. That's only going to help our viewership. But so he later becomes, and they all know. That's the thing, is that like when he says his name, they all know that is Apocalypse, right? And so I think, and then we also see in the end credits that Apocalypse is on that lunar base, and he's we see him with the card, with one of Remy's cards. So like we know that Remy's coming back, and I think that we just don't know when in time that is for that Apocalypse. So we've got both ends of the spectrum. I think that's the beginning where we're seeing them and then we're also seeing a clip of them in the end, or where the storyline is going to essentially start. Am I making sense here?
No, I know what you're saying. So, but yeah, when it talks about time travel in the Marvel universe, it's just like,
this is where it gets really messy. And I think too that when we see where Jean and Scott end up like 3,000 years in the future, and the person that they meet, that is a real like sub storyline where Jean and Scott go into the future. They in other people's bodies, and they take on the names Slim and Red. Like that's gonna throw anyone off. And then they raise Nathan for several years, and they never tell Nathan that they're his biological parents. And so I think this is the storyline that we're also going to see. And in part of that, they were probably telling Nathan stories of the X-Men. So in that like final conversation that Cable has with Scott and Jean, where he says like, I grew up hearing stories of the X-Men, feeling like I was always supposed to be one of them. He doesn't know, but he is talking about stories his parents told him when he didn't know that they were his parents. And this is again where all of these time travel and it overlaps so much, and yet not at all, right?
Yeah, no, it is a very interesting way they're going to go. I guess you're right. I guess seeing it at Age of Apocalypse would be a pretty good one to see in an animated show. So let's just pray. But there was just so much. I don't know if they can fit all that in 10 episodes, because like that's all the thing I hope. Like they're going to compact a lot if they did do that. And in a way, right. Because also, correct me if I'm wrong, was that also the time when Wolverine only had one hand and the Cyclops had one eye? because like they both fought each other, and then yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was kind of weird,
right? Because it's like, which timeline are we in? And it's like, unless you have like some big chart of it, a lot of that stuff runs together. And even when we're go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say because I thought that they were gonna go through the do his timeline with Onslaught. I forgot when that was. I
think that you're right, and I think that we don't yet know. I think that Onslaught is not going to be a season 2 story arc. I think that it's set up for season 3. Because I think Jean Grey said, your audio cut out. Did my audio cut out?
Hold on.
Okay, no. Your audio's back in. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I didn't lose you.
Okay, good. So good. Well, then it was just telling you not to interrupt me. I'm just kidding. I think that Onslaught is going to be a plot point. I just think that it's not going to be a season 2 plot point because Jean Grey says something to the effects of luckily that's not going to be an issue or whatever, to basically say that to distinguish the thoughts that the Onslaught is going to happen, because that's when Xavier merges their minds with Magneto so that he can stop this magnetic field from destroying the world. Then that is how, that's how Onslaught becomes a character, a villain, because of consequences of that. Thanks, Xavier. Out of the fire into the frying pan, out of the frying pan into the fire, whichever way you jump. And so I think that they've already mapped out for season 2, but I really think, I love being wrong too about this stuff because it only makes me more interested. But I think that they probably aren't going to be doing anything for Onslaught for season 2, and that's why they kind of extinguished it distinguishingly. And but I don't think that it's gone forever. No, I think we're gonna get Onslaught for sure.
I hope we get Onslaught. That's the one I kind of would love to see. Would see a storyline with Onslaught because finally
that's one of those storylines I think that we have the opportunity to get because because we've already told a lot of the big storylines. So we have the opportunity to, and who knows, maybe season 2 is all about Onslaught and then we don't get Apocalypse till season 3, I could be wrong, but
hey, it's but now we're living in a world where anything is possible, towards this. So yeah, so let's just keep on dreaming.
Anything's possible. And especially with Bishop showing up at the end and, with Forge and he's like, I don't know you. He's like, you don't know me yet. I
love that.
I know where this is going. Yeah.
1-2 right there in itself. So, I mean, overall, like I said, X-Men 97, great series. I think you should definitely, it's a must watch, from the most part. And I'm pretty sure overall, you would totally agree with that, with me on it, Stevie.
Oh, absolutely. The ratings, the Rotten Tomato score is 97%, which I think is very fitting. But I think that overall, yeah, this is an excellent series that I would recommend to anyone who even just has a mild interest of X-Men. I think that it's something that you can get into quickly. You don't need to know the previous storylines, though it does help. And it's something you can jump into and be extremely entertained. And I know I have personally recommended it to several people who aren't what I would, I don't think they would consider themselves nerds at all, but maybe they watched the show as a kid or something, or even as a teenager, and they're watching it now and they are loving it. So I think that it's really for everybody, but maybe viewer discretion is advised.
Oh, big time. I definitely not. I meant for little kids and stuff, but I would definitely totally agree. Yeah. I think that you anyone who has never read a comic book shouldn't feel like they're lost into what's going on. To be honest with you, though, comics can be very confusing, especially when it comes to story, especially as long as X-Men's been around. So don't feel discouraged that you don't know where to start or how to start off on it. I think it's just I think it was excellently well done and implemented. That I think that even a person that has never opened a book in their life in the X-Men universe could easily just catch on to it and then check it out. So definitely. And I agree. Also check the X-Men 90, the original X-Men series. I mean, it may be a little bit dated on the animation, but it is still good. So So definitely check that out on
It's
Disney
still really
Plus.
good.
Yeah. So there you go. But Stevie, thank you so much for coming on as always. And
It's my pleasure.
yeah, and folks, once again, we would love to know what y'all think about X-Men '97 and what you think. If you have your opinions and theories of what's going to happen next on it, so definitely just type it inside, comment down below, like, share, and follow on, and we'll continue on with some other awesome topics here on the What Do You Think spoiler cast. So once again, this is Davis and Stevie signing out. Y'all, take it easy.
Take care.